Get ready to fight from within. You're about to go behind enemy lines.
Roger, 3-2. Goliath copies all. Go ahead. Target is surrounded by multiple firms entering what appears to be a residential area. Requesting permission to engage. Over.
From the People's Republic of New York City, you're now going behind enemy lines with Gene Borelli and Russ Gallo.
And you are now behind enemy lines. Hey there, how you doing, America? Gene Borelli here, Russ Gallo over there. Russ, how's it going, man?
What's going on, Mean Gene?
Well, I just tweeted out you rocking the whole Less Government, More Fun gear that we have here at the show. Want to shout out to them for supplying a whole bunch of fun swag to the show. I see you digging the hat right now.
Yeah, by the way, I wore that T-shirt out a few times in Brooklyn and got nothing but cool responses from it. A lot of people asked me where I got it from.
In the People's Republic of Brooklyn?
Yes,
Are you serious?
Believe it or not, I swear, I kid you not.
That's pretty cool right there. I didn't even think that.
It was actually out in your neck of the woods. I was out at Rollin' Roaster in Sheepshead Bay.
Oh, so now we're giving Roller Roaster plugs. Hope we get some free roast beef out of it as well. Well, listen, folks, we got a great show for you tonight. We have Tom Borelli coming on the show later. We're going to talk a little bit of energy policy and election politics and get his take on the whole election 2016 cycle. And then later on, we have Karen Moreau, the executive director for the American Petroleum Institute in the People's Republic of New York. I'm going to do a little Cuomo bashing and talking about the controversy over another pipeline that you may have heard, may not have heard of, actually, the Constitution Pipeline in New York. There's a whole big hubbub about it, Russ. It was cleared by the federal government, but Cuomo and his Department of Environmental Conservation put the kibosh on it, so now it's in court. So I got a little wonky, a little fun. Wow, some good stuff.
You could have warned me about all this, but all right.
Well, listen, there is a show prep email that goes out every time we do the show, Russ. I don't know if you got that this week.
I have AOL, so it takes a little while.
You'll get it next week, don't worry. So listen, a lot of show to talk about. We're going to be talking some energy policy. It's not something that comes up unless people are hurting in their pocketbook, right? This is something where we always say, if it's hurting you at the pump, it becomes an issue for politicians, even though they may or may not be able to control energy policy. But because gas prices have been low, you haven't really heard much in the election cycle talking about energy policy. But it is vital, not only to economic security, but to national security.
Yeah, I mean, and this is... I've asked this question several times. I'm glad we're going to have some experts on tonight. Well, it's been said, Gene, that when there's instability in the Middle East, oil prices necessarily go up. I can't think of a more unstable time in the Middle East than today, and oil prices continue to be low. So I'd like to get an answer on this. Do market forces affect the price of oil, or do they not?
That's a good question to ask Tom Borelli before he comes on the show. And we want to know what you think, guys. Is energy policy important? You can join us in the chat room. It's getting full really quick, though. You may have to fight to get in there. But, if you can join us in the chat at www.behindenemylinesradio.us. Click on the Listen Live button if you're listening to us live here on Tuesday night. And you can tell us what you think. Lots to talk about tonight, Russ. I'm looking at the chat right now. And our friend Yak Bard has adopted the name Renegade Jew.
I heard
for the
about this
evening.
whole controversy. What is that even about?
The whole controversy is about a headline on Breitbart written by David Horowitz talking about Bill Kristol from National Review. And for some reason, it had nothing to do with the story. They just happened to call him Republican dissenter, Renegade Jew.
Is that Jew-on-Jew violence? Is that what that whole thing is?
It might be Jew-on-Jew violence. But you know what, though? It was a totally uncalled for headline. And, I put something out on social media personally saying how this is basically destroying the legacy of Andrew Breitbart with sensationalist headlines like this. And, some say that, the Trump-loving has got to go. And it really is destroying Andrew's free spirit of, not affiliating with any particular candidate or philosophy and just believing in the conservative movement. I want to know what Russ Gall thinks about this, because Russ is a big fan of Drudge. He's a big fan of Breitbart.
Yeah, I mean...
Is there such a thing as too much Trump in the media?
No, give Trump a chance is my motto. Hashtag give Trump a chance. Breitbart would certainly... I mean, I hate to put words in a dead man's mouth, but Breitbart would almost undoubtedly be supporting Donald Trump at this point. He's the Republican nominee. Who else would Breitbart be writing favorably about at this point where he's still to be alive? Hillary Clinton? Bernie Sanders? Come on.
I got to think he would get in line, especially because Hillary... You know what? I'm not on the never Trump train. I am on the never Hillary line, okay? Donald Trump is the army we got. You know what I mean? He's the nominee, and like Rick Perry said, you got to get behind the Republican nominee if you want to bring home the win.
Listen, we have friends from all over the political spectrum, right? So my Rhino friends out there, they don't like Donald Trump for a whole host of reasons. Conservatives claim that they don't like Donald Trump because he's not conservative. I hate to tell you folks, he is like pretty damn conservative. And for the Rhinos that don't like him, what don't you like about him? There's certain things that he's not conservative on, and the real right-wingers have some points. But you both can't be right. You know what I mean? It's not that he's not conservative and he's liberal. Like, you just can't have it both ways. So I see a couple of our close friends in here are Rhinos. Tell me why you don't like Donald Trump. And then explain to me why you think Hillary Clinton would be better.
And by the way, looking into the chat room right now, I'm loving the comment from a person who claims to be a former Saudi employee. It says, the price of oil is pretty much dependent solely on how much the lords of Mecca, and he misspelled it, whatever, want to pump. Okay, I like to think that the price of oil went down because we started pumping more. I'd like to think that our natural gas reserves in the Northeast should be helping us earn more money. But for some reason, New York State doesn't want to do it. New York is content to be a consumer rather than a producer. And I don't understand why, but we'll get more into that later.
Yeah, we got to dig deeper into this because I don't understand. I really don't get it. First of all, we do say oil is relatively cheap right now, which it is in some ways because it was up to almost $4 a gallon at one point in New York.
But when I was your age, the gallon of gas used to be 60 cents.
When Bush took office, it was under $2 a gallon, and now it's over $2 a gallon. So... I mean, I don't know if you just can account for inflation and say that that's what's causing it, but at the end of the day, it's not really as cheap as it was.
Well, just the fact that it went up to $4 a gallon or over $4 a gallon, and now it's back down.
But my
people are touting that.
Don't you remember though? Why was it up that high? Remember they were saying things like the wars in the Middle East, instability, uncertainty in the Middle East were driving these prices up. It turns out that it's not true. Iraq is collapsing. Iran is on the brink of war with us. ISIS is running wild through the Middle East. Syria collapsed. Egypt collapsed. I mean, country after country collapsed over there, and oil prices are still relatively low.
Absolutely. Another comment in the chat room, OPEC has tried to do what they did in the 70s, destroy the U.S. oil companies, but this time America planned for that. So maybe we learned from the mistakes of the 70s.
Who planned for it, though? Barack Obama... We're pumping more oil in the United States now despite... Barack Obama and this administration. Private oil lands are pumping the oil out. The lands that are leased by the government to oil manufacturers and explorers have pumped less. So our administration didn't plan for this, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And one of the questions I'm going to ask Tom Borelli once I get him on the line right after I finish talking here is the progressive left's environmental stance and how much that hurts our economy. Especially poor places like, for example, upstate New York that could use the 2,500 jobs or so that this pipeline could, generate just from the construction of it alone. Let alone, there used to be such a thing as a factory in New York State. Now, I don't think there are any more factories anymore, or any more manual labor jobs in upstate New York. I think that's the problem here. And I got to ask why this isn't happening in states like New York that could use those jobs.
And it's another worthy conversation because Donald Trump, one of the positions he takes is talking about tariffs. And the argument is that he's not conservative because he doesn't believe in free trade. So I think that this is worth looking at because I got to tell you the truth. I'm about as conservative as you can get. And I'm not saying about as conservative for a Northeast Republican. I'm talking about as conservative as you can get. But I've never felt fully comfortable with quote-unquote free trade. I think Donald Trump might be onto something here.
Well, listen, as we speak right now, I am trying to get Tom Borelli on the line with us, and I believe he's there with us now. Tom, is that you?
This is me.
Hey, Tom Borelli, Gene Baradelli, Russ Gallo here on the line with you behind enemy lines. How are you doing, sir?
Great. How are you doing tonight?
We're doing great. We just started priming our audience a little bit in our chat room, talking about the what we think is an underreported issue in election politics, and it's right up your alley. We've been talking about energy policy, especially in the context of what's going on here in New York State with the Constitution pipeline and Governor Cuomo basically catering to limousine liberals and their pseudo-environmental concerns. I know that this is right in your wheelhouse, man. Let's just talk in general about the importance of energy policy to the American voter this election cycle. What do you think?
Well, energy is a great topic for the American people really to focus on, because it's an issue that affects each and every family and each and family individual. All you need to do is pull into a gas station and fill your car or SUV up, and that's energy policy. It's a lifeblood of our economy. And sadly, progressive Democrats, what they really want is they have a war on fossil fuels. President Obama said he wanted electricity prices to skyrocket and that he would bankrupt part of the coal industry if he went through with his cap and trade plan. And Obama's cap and trade plan didn't go through. That was targeting coal-fired power plants, but at the end of the day, he used EPA regulations to essentially bankrupt a number of coal mining companies, and electricity prices are now beginning to go up. And when it comes to Mrs. Clinton and Bernie Sanders, they also don't like coal. And Mrs. Clinton recently said, remember, she's going to put more coal miners out of work and more bankruptcies if she was president. Bernie Sanders, doesn't like fracking at all. And so what we're looking at is the progressive Democrat policy is that they want higher energy prices, and that affects every individual person, because higher energy prices means more money out of your pocket, out of your disposable income, that goes to pay for these necessities, of gasoline and utilities, and that lowers our disposable income. So energy policy is huge. It affects everyone, and progressive Democrats want higher energy prices, and they're not shy about saying it.
Has America been lulled into a false sense of security when it comes to gas prices going down recently? And is that going to affect whether people will vote based upon their wallet when it comes to the prices at the pump or the prices of their home heating oil and things of that nature?
It really should, and that's what the really great thing about energy policy, which is really almost your first question as well, is that because it affects every family, it should be top of mind when people go to vote. And again, Democrats, they want higher energy prices, and for those who are trying to figure out who to support, in this coming election, and state level as well, is the question is, do you want higher energy prices? I mean, it's as simple as that, because the information is there. Unfortunately, too many Americans really don't connect the dot between something that sounds harmless, like energy policy, and their livelihood. But there's a direct line. And again, with higher energy prices, what that really means is higher unemployment as well, because you have to think about which CEO would want to build a manufacturing plant in the United States, and with higher energy prices, especially electricity prices, they will always opt for the cheaper input cost of lower energy prices, lower electricity prices, and that means moving jobs overseas to places like China, India, where they use coal abundantly and also have cheaper labor force as well. So
I'm not disputing anything that you're saying here, because I agree with every word you said. I think the disconnect here is that, for the most part, energy prices, as Gene and I were discussing before you came on, they seem to be relatively low over the past few years, and yet the economy has not boomed. And I'm wondering, how can that be explained, especially to the average voter? Or is this a delayed thing that the economy, will eventually pick up if we keep energy prices low?
I mean, your point is well taken. The fact that people tend not to react when things are going well. Any time when there's high gasoline prices, the Democrats, are always blaming the oil companies. We haven't heard about that lately, now have we? So people certainly have been lulled